Almost 4 years ago, we recognized a pressing reality that the engines of true and equitable global growth will be driven by economies that today are described as emerging. Hence, we conceptualized the Emerging Economies Forum with a clear intent, and that is to catalyze and unleash the inherent power of these economies through better alignment of trade, talent, technology, and more importantly, capital. And before we look ahead, it's worth pausing briefly on what this forum has identified across the years as core priorities to its mission. First, the need to attract more long-term, patient investment to support growth. Secondly, digital public infrastructure is essential. It's no longer optional. And third, the growing importance of deeper and sustained collaboration between nations and their businesses, and of course, their peoples. Today's conversation builds on that foundation with greater urgency and sharper focus, especially in these rather, and now cliched term, turbulent times. And we can see it, we can feel it. The very idea of an emerging economy itself is changing. They are no longer peripheral to the global system. They are absolutely central to the system. Today, emerging economies account for nearly 50% of global GDP growth. They are home to the world's youngest populations. They are increasingly urban, globally connected, and increasingly digital. India, my friends, is one such example. A country of 1.4 billion people, a nation that over the past decade has shown how delivery to its poorest can be done through determined leadership, focus, and collaboration. Building digital public infrastructure that supports everything from real-time payments to identity, where literally hundreds of millions of those once described as unbankable are now fully integrated in the formal economy. But through this, access to healthcare, education, and other critical needs are delivered, often at a fraction of the cost seen elsewhere. That's not just innovation. It's indigenous, relevant innovation at its most potent. Solutions designed with skill, scale, and speed, and most importantly, affordability, but with global relevance. But India is not alone. Across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East, all represented in this room here today, I see emerging economies moving rapidly from inertia to starting journeys where their inherent capabilities through tech and collaboration are being unleashed. At India Global Forum, our work sits precisely at this intersection of policy, technology, capital, and globalization. We connect India's innovation ecosystem with the global opportunities, supporting businesses as they expand into new markets, helping them access global capital, and creating platforms where partnerships are built like this. And so, through this year's forum, I believe we must aim to deliver 3 outcomes. Firstly, clarity, to identify what is working across emerging economies today, in policy and technology, capital development, and of course in governance, and identify what truly delivers impact. Secondly, regional collaboration, identifying where governments, investors, multilaterals, and innovators can work together, learning from each other, and removing those barriers, mobilize long-term capital, and drive growth at scale and at speed. Friends, this spirit of moving from bilateral to global collaboration is, I believe, best reflected in the UAE and India partnership. This relationship has evolved into one of the most dynamic partnerships in the world, reinforced by a powerful reality. And so, lastly, That reality is its people. That ultimately it's people rather than processes that will lead change. India's global diaspora of over 30 million people, including a vibrant Indian community here itself in the UAE, acts as what Prime Minister Modi has described a living bridge. A living bridge connecting economies, cultures, and ideas. And I know each and every nation represented here today will be home to many from my diaspora. Equally, just as your diaspora are becoming increasingly mobile and influential around the world. Friends, it's now time to connect these living bridges. And finally, about how emerging economies adopt and adapt to technologies. And His Excellency and others will be testament to the conversation that we had earlier, specifically on this point. So using digital public infrastructure, AI, and innovation, not just to move faster, but to deliver outcomes for citizens at scale. This is where governance and global voice matters most. And this is what the true essence of the World Government Summit is all about. Economic growth without institutional strength is unsustainable. Investors, friends, look at predictability. Citizens, of course, look at fairness. And societies ultimately look to all of us for accountability. Emerging economies are no longer simply adapting global models. They are, in many cases, designing them. We see this in India, in India's digital public goods model, in Africa's leapfrogging in fintech, in the Gulf's emergence as a global logistics and connectivity hub, linking Asia, Africa, Europe, and in Latin America's platform-driven entrepreneurship. We are joined today by ministers, multilateral leaders, founders, and investors who are already delivering on these ambitions. For instance, His Excellency President Boko, leading Botswana's long-standing commitment to governance and stability. And leaders, founders, and investors from across regions who all are building businesses of global relevance from emerging markets. Not to emerging markets, of course, but from emerging markets as well. While many may argue that globalization is in retreat, I, friends, see it differently. I believe growth should not be a hostage to a single market, a currency, or a corridor, or indeed, dare I say it, one or two nations. The world is too big, friends. The challenges are too diverse, and the opportunities are really too exciting. So let me close with one final reflection. In a world where every economy today is adapting to new and disruptive technologies, every economy, and I mean it, every economy of the world is having to reinvent itself, emerging in new ways of governing, trading, and working together. In many ways, we're all trying to find our feet. Some may say it more confidently than others, but ultimately, we know the hidden truth. We are all trying to find our feet. So can we just pause on this point and accept that today, all economies, big or small, rich or poor, west, east, north, south, are actually emerging economies. So with these opening words and thoughts, I say thank you for your patience. Best wishes to a fruitful forum. Thank you.